Fresh air.
Hi, I'm Maisie McCabe, UK editor of Campaign, and welcome to Campaign's Media360 podcast, produced by Fresh Air Production, and recorded here at the 21st Conference in the Grand Hotel, Brighton. This year's theme was risk and innovation, so for this series we spoke to a huge range of marketing leaders to explore how they and their teams push the boundaries for their brands and clients. In this episode, Fresh Air's Director of Content, Michaela Hallam, spoke to Susanne Nowak, Senior Brand Manager at Mondelez.
And we're back with another episode of the Campaign Media360 podcast, this time under the pretty relentless rain on the Brighton seafront. It's getting heavier literally as we speak. But I am joined by Susanne Nowak, who is Senior Brand Manager at Mondelez. Thank you for joining me.
Thanks so much for having me.
Senior Brand Manager at Mondelez. I kind of start every one of these conversations by saying that's kind of the title on paper, but what does that actually translate into in terms of what you do?
Really good question. It actually encompasses quite a lot. So we are ultimately the brand owners in our business. So marketing is at the center of our organization. So we take care of everything from comms to our commercials to our P&L to our long-term strategy. How do we want to show up with our brands, and how do we really bring our loved products to the nation?
Brilliant, thank you. And yours really are loved products. It must be a brilliant brand company to work for in terms of that. But we're here
snacking, that's for sure.
I was saying I was admiring the notebook earlier as well, the Cadbury's notebook. But we're here today at Media 360. The theme this year is all about risk. But to get to know you a little bit better, what's the biggest risk that you've ever taken?
Probably having moved quite a lot around. So as you might be able to hear from my accent, I'm from Germany originally. But I've actually lived abroad since I was 19 and in quite a lot of countries. And I guess for me, it felt like a risk because you don't really know if the decision you're taking is the right thing because you're just out there, you're moving. I lived in the Nordics, in all of the Nordic countries, lived in the UK, in Thailand, in France for a little bit. So almost just putting yourself out there into the unknown felt like a really big risk because I knew what I had at home in Germany. I had my family, I had my friends, so giving that up.
What are the benefits of taking that leap?
Loads. So much learning. I'm meeting, new friends from various cultures. I'm learning new languages, new impressions. I have a really great job working for Mondelez, obviously, so I have a lot of learning opportunities, and I think I still have all my family and friends network, and I'm just gathering them all over the world. So I think it's been really eye-opening and an amazing journey, worth the risk.
And how does that then translate into the work that you do and the marketing that you do? Does that enable you to take more risks? What's the most risky thing that you've done in work?
Well, I'd hope so. I mean, I guess because we're a really big business, we're not always taking risks that are really reckless. I think it needs to be a really considered risk. And I think one of the biggest risks I would say I was taking as part of my career, as part of Mondelez, was when I led the Cadbury Fingers brand. So Cadbury Fingers, as you know, is a brand that stands for shared family moments. It's basically consumed when people and the family come together. And we realized if we are a brand that stands for these shared moments, we need to ensure that everyone can feel part and everyone can be part of the conversation. And that's where we discovered that deafness is actually an issue where, people are growing up. Some people are like 90% actually of babies are born deaf into families, and the families actually don't have prior knowledge. So that kind of for us was a really key insight for us, where we said, look, how do we ensure Fingers as a national love brand shows up in a way where we can help make people more included in those conversations? So the other insight was this dinner table syndrome, which is kind of like a syndrome where deaf people are inadvertently left out of the shared conversation, even with families and friends at the table, right? Because you just communicate, the hearing people just communicate, and the deaf people sits next to you.
Even within that family unit?
Even within a family unit, right? Which is a really stark insight, and it's quite sad because it's not intentional, right? But it does happen every day. So how could you therefore ensure that these kind of things don't happen as often? And how can we ensure that we bring together the nation to be a bit more deaf aware?
So you had an amazing insight there. So how do you then turn that into creative work and meaningful creative work that talks to the Cadbury's Fingers brand?
Yeah, so I think, right, the insight I think was really powerful, right? And we just linked it back to our purpose, which is all about making sure that everyone can be part of the conversations and people can come together. We've worked really hard with our agency, VCCP, our creative agency, who've led this with our partner, the National Deaf Children's Society, and other inclusion experts to ensure that this comes to life in a way that's really authentic for the deaf community, but also that it works for the Cadbury Fingers brand, right? Again, with Cadbury Fingers, you have something that's very unique, that is fingers, and BSL is a language that's predominantly taught with fingers.
Right.
There's facial presence, facial expressions as well, but fingers is really a key tool. So I think ensuring that what we were set out to do, that really matches with what the brand stands for, was really, really crucial.
And you were here on the panel talking about that work with Cadbury's Fingers, both year one and year two. Can you talk us through a little bit more about kind of how that work lives in the real world?
Yeah, so it's actually, we're starting to be in the third consecutive year of the campaign, which is really exciting. In the first year, our objective was really to make more people part of this shared conversation and part of the dinner table, right? So we split the campaign into two pieces. The first one was to create awareness about deafness, ensuring that the nation feels what it feels like to be left out. So we have a lovely little 30 seconds clip with Chiara, who's our deaf actress, kind of showcasing with obscured subtitles what it means to be left out. And then secondly, we created the tools, so little conversation starters in British Sign Language, little animated phrases that could be like typical British weather. Are you going anywhere nice? What a great goal you've scored in football. So very relevant phrases for the nation to start picking up British Sign Language as tools. So it's twofold, creating awareness, but also inspiring action to use your fingers to kind of make a change in society.
And communication. And then you also did a partnership with Chelsea Football Club.
Yes, that was year two of our campaign. Post the first year, again, I think it was just mind-blowing. I think the feedback we got from the deaf community, they were so supportive because we've kept them really close in the co-creation process. So that was really good. It did a great job for the brand already. So we wanted to just see what can we do in year two to almost make the movement even bigger. And we have, as part of Mondelez, we have obviously a long-standing partnership with our football clubs. And Chelsea FC, they're also quite progressive in that sense. And they saw our campaign. They also reached out to us. They were like, can you help us becoming a little bit more deaf aware? And earlier last year, we partnered a little bit with them. And then last year, we really went big with a campaign where we had a signing choir at one of the Chelsea matches sing the Chelsea anthem. We had some of our players learning BSL, again, driving to our webpage to ensure that more people can learn a bit more football-specific conversation starter phrases. Chelsea had also trained 2,700 people of their staff to become more deaf aware. And they're hosting quarterly BSL stadium tours. So really great partnership and very excited to have had them on board.
What other pieces of work or other brands that are taking risks or working in innovative ways that inspire you?
You might have heard that a lot, but I've been at the RISE conference the other day, and there's so many really inclusive brands and showcases. And I think one brand that constantly over the years, where I keep coming back to, is Dove. They, with their Real Beauty campaign, I think they are really keeping themselves up with the trends of how media changes, how everything changes. I'm not sure if you've seen it, but their latest Add to Code is all about them helping AI to learn. So basically this clip features how, a woman is looking for the most beautiful woman in the world, and there's a blonde AI-generated lady popping up constantly. And basically what Dove did is trying to feed the algorithm a different example of it. So if you were then searching for the most beautiful woman in the world according to the Dove Real Beauty ad, it basically would show the diversity of the people, of all the women that are out there. And I think it's just a really good example how they reinvent their purpose year after year, where media changes.
But with a consistency to the message that they're putting out that changes according to culture and environment and tech changes. So that's all about kind of creating a relationship, I think, as the session on Mother and Uber you referenced it with your agency. It's about having a collaborative relationship that is actively and mutually encouraging in risk-taking and innovation and progression in the work that you create. How do you enable that sort of a culture so that people feel comfortable in doing those things?
Yeah. So I think in general, it's about, I guess we as a marketing team and us as people, we're quite afraid of failure, right? I think it's like an inherent thing. No one wants to fail. No one wants to get things wrong. I think again, back to the example of Sign with Fingers, Big and Small, like campaign, I think what was so humbling about it is that I'm not deaf. My agency, they were not deaf, right? So we actually did not know how to do this in a way that was really right for the deaf community. That led for us to reach out really early on to our inclusion specialist, to Free to Work, to the NDCS, to get really a tight team of inclusion experts on board and a tight team of the deaf community as well to panel, to co-create the idea with us. And I think we just created an environment where all of those views really mattered, and you're kind of dependent because you're basically developing a campaign in a different language, right? So you are quite dependent on these experts.
Translators.
Exactly. So I think that openness, it needed a lot of flexibility from all parties involved, right? Also from a creative point of view, our agency, VCCP, couldn't hold their creative idea too tight, right? Because the feedback from the deaf community meant sometimes we needed to change a tagline or so on. So I think it's a really, really, really strong example of how we almost leveled, everyone was equals in that process, right? We had a lot of trust. We built a really great relationship. We were very agile and we had to stay really flexible. And it was a mind-blowing, really fun journey to be together on as well.
Moving on to another one of my very favourite brands, Toblerone. You've recently started targeting a younger audience. How hard is that for a brand that's like 115 years old?
You did a lot of great research. I'm loving it. I think we are in the beginning of the journey on Toblerone, and it's a brand that is known for Swiss heritage, right? Great chocolate quality and so on. But like we also see that generation like Gen Z, they want something different from their chocolate. They want a bit more progressive marketing. They want us to take a stance in society. So I think we've taken a leap and we're learning as we go. We're also, creating with them. We're just trying to go after them and a little bit more, okay, what is it actually that is resonating with you? How can we, make Toblerone relevant for the younger audience? Because it's an important part of our future growth, right? So we need to adapt to where our future consumers are going to be and test and learn and figure out our way.
It feels like in the same conversation as with the Dove reference, it's about just keeping up
Exactly.
and making sure that you don't get complacent. Some people might ask, where is there space for a chocolate brand to have a stance on social issues? How has that become an important part of what you do?
And I think it's a super valid question, right? I think what we've been debating a lot with our agency team and our internal stakeholders is which of our brands have the right to do so and which not. So I think in Mondelez we have a model. Not all of our brands have the purpose and the power to do it, nor they shouldn't. They should be representative, absolutely, but it doesn't mean they need to be loud, shouting about it, and it doesn't mean they're there to create a change. On Cadbury, I think we have such huge heritage and history in this country, right? Like John Cadbury, Quaker family. We were really, like as I said before, right, the fabric of the nation. Like
there's a legacy
they have
piece
done
there.
Really good. There's a legacy piece, and same for Fingers, right? We stand for shared moments, and I think it's a brand with 98% awareness. Everyone loves it. You have a power brand at your hands. You gotta use it to create cultural change. You gotta ensure it stays true to your purpose, right? And that's what we've always tried. And that's why British Sign Language and Fingers, it's very close in. And that's absolutely sure to protect. But I think the feedback we've had is that, people are really glad. The deaf community is super supportive, like that we're taking a stance. And I think with those power brands, we just need to start making a move. Otherwise, it's gonna take even longer to get there.
So it's the same as any influencer taking their platform to make ripples in places that count. Moving on finally to something that is a personal passion of mine, which is audio. This is the first time that Campaign are podcasting from the event, and commercial radio is doing brilliantly. Where does audio fit within your plans? Is it an opportunity you're excited by, you want to explore? more? It's almost like a heritage platform now, but kind of where does it look for you in the future?
Yeah, so I mean, personally, definitely a big audio listener, so I think it's always been on the forefront. I think with my new brands, like we need to figure out a way, how do you get there? What we've done on Sign with Fingers, because, well, for instance, we partnered with Tasha Ghouri in our first year, and she's asked us to sponsor a podcast to dip our toes into it. So we did that as part of Cadbury Fingers, right? And I think it's a really, really important media to build that relevance and to build that connection. So we absolutely want to do more of it, especially in light with how the industry is changing for us as a fast-moving consumer goods manufacturer, right? Like HFSS, there's a lot of different regulations coming in. So I think it's absolutely a key to understand, learn, and figure out how do we make more of it.
Well, that's a joy for me to hear. Thank you very much. Absolutely. I've really, really enjoyed the time that you spent with me. Thank you for sitting down and talking to me. I've had the privilege of talking to Susanne Nowak, Senior Brand Manager at Mondelez. Thank you very much.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you for listening to the Campaign Media 360 podcast presented by Michaela Hallam, the Director of Content at Fresh Air Production, our podcast partner. There are lots more conversations to hear with a great range of marketing leaders, so please follow on your favoured platform so you don't miss an episode.